Welcome, everybody, to the Chant, our discussion on all things personal finance. Today, we're talking about goals-based savings accounts or general savings accounts. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Jeff Myers.
Hey, John, how's it going?
It's going great. Before we get going, I want to remind everybody to please like and subscribe this video. It helps with the algorithm, helps with the channel. It'd be great. So today we're talking about goal-based savings account. Jeff, what is this? What are we talking about?
Yeah, so last time, John, we talked about emergency savings, covering ourselves in the instance of losing a job, some sort of terrible situation where we need a large amount of expenses. We talked about 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Now we're talking about goals-based savings. So separate yourself from the emergency fund. And now we're talking about, hey, I've got something that's pretty expensive and I want to be able to pay for this. And we've talked about this in the past. We're not going to use credit cards to make that purchase. So we're going to plan for it, save for it, and be able to fund it entirely with our savings. So we're kind of building out a separate savings account here that's based around a goal so that we can fund that.
What are like some of the goals we would be aiming for?
Super basic, right? Mortgage. We want to buy our first house. We want to buy a new car. We're looking to maybe build a home gym. That's something that I would like to do.
There you go.
Taking a big vacation, family vacation, prepare for something. It can kind of be anything you want. I mean, we can kind of tie some emotion to it when we actually name it, right? So if it's just a general savings account, we're like, oh yeah, I'll put a couple dollars in there. But if we know, hey, this is my savings account to go to Jamaica at the end of the year, man, I'm putting all my money in that all the time because I want to go to Jamaica, right?
Right. Okay, so that's a good way to actually approach it, is to kind of give you, I mean, that's why it's called a goals savings account, right? There's a goal, there's a payoff.
Yeah.
It's not just this bucket you're just kind of tossing nickels and
Right.
dimes into.
Right. We're
So
giving some life to it. Makes it a little bit easier to save for it.
right, and it's just there's an end point, and then you get to spend the money, and it's fun.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a key with this one, right? Is we need to have a specific dollar amount that we're saving for.
Right.
So if we're trying to save for a mortgage, we're looking to save that 20%. If we're looking to buy a car, and we want to fund it with a car loan, we might be looking at 10%, 20% of the car's value. If we're looking for a vacation, we're looking up the prices of the flight, the car rental, the hotel, food, all of that added together is our total savings cost. So it's going to require a little bit of research here. We got to know what we're funding, because if we have a goal, a specific dollar amount, we can chip away at that and see our progression over time. And then on top of that, as well, as we want to put some time-based parameters on this. We don't just want to say, hey, I want to save for a house that I might buy at some point. If we can be specific with this, just like setting any other kind of goal, specific and time-based, we can measure it over time, and it's going to be attainable. So we say, hey, I want to purchase a $300,000 house, and I'm going to buy this house in 3 years. I know that I need to save $60,000, and I know that over 3 years I need to save $20,000 a year. We can kind of work back into what we need to save each month, each week, however we want to split that up.
Right. It seems like it's very purposeful savings, and where the emergency fund, we talked about how that's kind of like where you're learning to save and you're kind of figuring out how to live life with a savings account and what it means to kind of put money away. This is like the next step, right? You've graduated from emergency fund, and you know how to save. You're probably not adding that much money to your emergency fund at this point, if at all. And now you're using it for more kind of helpful purchases or more proactive purchases.
Yeah, and actually, let's take a step back on that front too, because we can also approach this in the same way that that Dave Ramsey does, right? So if we thought about emergency fund, baby step one, that $1,000,
right?
If this is the route that we're taking, we could also approach this as, hey, my goal is to pay off my debt. I've got $10,000 of debt. I'm going to save up $10,000 and pay it all off at once. So with your debt, your goal can be that as well. It doesn't have to be something extravagant or crazy or an asset that you're purchasing. It could also be a way to get yourself out of debt.
That's a great point. Yeah, because that's I guess the best way to kind of frame this general savings account is this is money that will be spent, right? It's
Yes,
got that goal, it's
absolutely.
got that end date. It's you have it and then you don't have it, but hopefully you have something else in the process, or you have a
Yeah.
debt-free life, which is also worth having.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's talk kind of mechanics of it. How would you recommend someone go about starting a uh, a goals-based savings account?
Yeah. So in our emergency fund conversation, we talked about, having a separate bank with
Yeah,
this separate savings account. I think in this situation with our goal, this is something that we want to be seeing every day, or however often we're checking the bank account. We want to be reminded of that goal
yeah,
regularly,
hmm
because that can also push us to say, hey, I didn't go out to dinner this week like I thought I would. I'm going to put that
right.
$50 into my savings account.
You can see that
So
kind of tick upwards, and it's like you're winning the game a little bit. You kind of
yeah,
gamify it
exactly.
a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. So in that sense, I would say, setting up a savings account is your first step, your
Hmm.
bank account. A lot of times when online banking, you can actually change the title of that savings account. So
Okay,
I would even recommend changing the title to something like car fund, mortgage
sure,
fund, that type of thing. So you're reminded when you see that account, when you see your statement each month, you're
right,
reminded what that is and what its purpose is and how it's growing over time.
right. So kind of using psychological tricks to kind of keep your enthusiasm up because because it is savings, like it doesn't happen overnight, right? If it did happen overnight, you wouldn't
Right.
get saved for it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
keeping that momentum going.
It's
And
a discipline that you're building, but it's not psychological, it's behavioral, right? This is how
sure,
everyone's mind operates this way. If there's something you want and you work towards it diligently, it's going to be that much more rewarding than if you want it and forget about it and then come back later, right? So if you're
right,
reminded constantly, behaviorally, you're looking at this, you want this, it's
right.
going to build it up, but you're also going to prepare for it well.
That makes sense. So looking at kind of specific account types that we want to put this money in, it's a lot of these things. I know when I was saving for my mortgage, or still am saving for my mortgage, that takes time. It takes years,
Yeah.
and it's a bigger savings amount. It's tempting to want to put that money in the market so it can get some growth to it as well, instead of just a savings account where it's going to get like 0.5% interest, whatever that's at right now.
Yeah, if that.
So what is that something you would recommend people do, or what? Let's not go recommendations. Let's go. What are the pros and cons of maybe trying to find a safe investment vehicle to kind of use for long-term savings?
Yeah, it's really challenging in this situation because I would say we're still in the baby steps zone. We're
Okay.
still, jumping into what it takes to save and invest. And so I think we should try to shy away from seeking a return or going after something that's maybe a little bit more risky because um, this really should be short-term funding.
Hmm.
And unless you have some secret crystal ball that I don't, and of something that's gonna skyrocket in a couple days or a couple months, it's probably gonna better serve us to kind of separate ourselves from that mindset of this is a return I'm seeking. Rather, we want this to be safe. We want this to be money that we're adding to it, and it might grow a little bit. We might get a little bit of interest off of it, but it's not ever going to go down the opposite direction. And so
Okay.
if we put this in the stock market, we're adding more risk to the situation, and we want to try to avoid that because I mean, worst case scenario, let's say you're saving for your mortgage and you know that it's going to take you 3 years. And in the middle of, year two, you're 6 months away from your house purchase, stock market crashes and you lose 20, 30% of your savings account.
Right.
That really steps you back in your progress.
Right.
So I think in this situation, we should really try to think more along the lines of safety and kind of investing this as a short-term funding goal as opposed to an investment vehicle.
Okay.
Now that being said, there are still, of course, options available to us on that front.
Hmm.
So we can open a general savings account with our bank, right? We'll probably get maybe 0.1%. It's going to be pretty low.
Ooh.
Rates nowadays are not going to be anything you're going to, write home about.
Right.
There are a few online banks, and actually this could help us as well. Ally Bank
Hmm.
has, a savings account that's Ally Bank doesn't have physical locations. They only have online banks. Just they have all the same banking regulations, safeties, insurance procedures, all that as a normal bank. They're just totally virtual.
Right.
But with that, their online access is maybe a little bit more advanced.
Okay.
And if you do that, you can open up a savings account for them and get maybe a little bit of a higher yield savings account. You might have a higher minimum that you have to hit, so you might need to save up $5,000 or $10,000 before you can open one of these accounts. But when you do that, you might get 1% or 1.5%. So it might be a little bit more beneficial. And then actually Ally Bank, one of the things that they do is really cool is you can take one savings account and separate it out into chunks.
Oh,
So you
that's
can have
nice.
a car fund, a mortgage fund, a beach fund, like all those different things, but all within one account. So you can see how each one grows.
Right. And I know like 1% doesn't sound like a lot, but if it's, if you got 10 grand in there, that's what, $100,
Yeah.
right? So that's going out, twice, I guess, generally, depending on the situation. So,
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like a lot, and sometimes it's not a lot, but it's not nothing either. And
Mm.
I think it's easy to kind of be like, oh, that 1% sucks, but I can put it over here and get 13%. But but the risk is just incredibly high, especially if it is
Right.
something like a mortgage that's going to take you a few years to save up to. And not to mention, if you lost your money in like a market collapse, you're going to really wish you had that money because your job might be in question. You might need more
Right.
than the normal emergency fund.
Right.
Or if your job isn't in question, that's the perfect time to buy some assets.
Yep.
So uh, keeping that money out of the market, there are benefits to it when bad things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear too, a lot of these online banks, their savings accounts are actually floating rates. So they're based on usually LIBOR plus a certain percentage. So the London Interbank, um, what is it, organization rate, I think something like that. But that's actually going away shortly. Basically, what that means is it's a floating rate. So as rates are changed right now, of course, the Fed's keeping them incredibly low. Someday, potentially, they will come back up. And as they do, these savings accounts, their savings, the interest rates will increase as well.
Sure,
Because, I mean, if you had looked 2 years ago, I think Ally Bank was offering like 2.8% for
sure,
their savings account. It's down to like maybe 1.2% right now.
right.
But so just because it's 1% now doesn't mean it's going to be that way forever. It could increase while still maintaining that same level of safety.
Okay,
So there's still options there.
that's a good point. And now, but these are kind of what I would call kind of more traditional
Hmm.
savings methods. We live in the modern world, man. We got smartphones.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of okay, you smile, you're thrilled about this. There's a bunch of savings apps out there that like you see like Acorns advertised.
Hmm.
That was a big one for a while. Um, what are some of the other ones? You said Mint,
Mint. Yeah. Credit Karma now has their own kind of savings vehicle.
Credit Karma.
Um,
I think we both like
Albert.
Albert.
Yep, we
Albert's a good
both use
one.
that one. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love these apps. I feel like I've tried just about every single budget and savings app.
Hmm.
I get a kick out of them. I love playing around with them, seeing how they work, stuff like that. But the nice thing about these types of apps as well is they do the same thing that the bank does, right? They can set up your automatic savings.
Hmm.
They separate them out. They can create goals and list them out. But really, the biggest thing is they're automatically kind of pulling money
Hmm.
slowly from your checking account. And the really cool thing, like with Albert, is they have an algorithm you can set up. So you got two options. You can say, I want to save $5 a week, $10 a week, or I want you to evaluate my bank account level and save a specific dollar amount every single day.
Right.
And so they've got this algorithm where they take something like 1% or less of your saving of your regular account, whatever account it's tied to, and it pulls that into a separate savings account.
Yeah.
And with Albert, you can have a few different goals. So you can have your basic emergency fund and then a car fund and other things, and it will allocate those out based on the size of the goal. So if your emergency fund goal is $10,000 and your car goal is $5,000, when it pulls in savings, 2/3 of it will go to your emergency fund, 1/3 will go to your car fund. So
Right.
it's really kind of doing that work for you,
Hmm.
making it more automatic.
Right.
Um, it takes some getting used to. Sometimes you're not accustomed to having 20 or $30 drawn from your account every single day. But if you think about it in the sense of, I'm not going to go to Starbucks for the next 5 days,
Yeah.
all that money goes into savings, right? And that's
Right.
pretty close in terms of the same dollar amount, given how expensive it is.
Yeah. No, I like Albert a lot. I do the one where it's algorithmic every day. It pulls something out, and it's usually anywhere between like 10 and $50. It's usually not too much.
Right.
And I haven't like the algorithm's good. It's never like overdrawn me or even gotten me close. I'm a pretty big fan of it. Not sure how they do it. It's kind of creepy, but it
Yeah.
works great and it's free. Like that's the other thing to talk about is that uh it's easy to set up. You link your accounts. It's free. They make their money, I think, off of advertising, and they do have some like vehicles that they try to kind of sell you, like or like I think they all kind of do micro loans now too,
Yep.
which is a topic for another video.
Yep.
Uh, I think we can both agree right now, though, avoid micro loans, right?
Yeah.
We'll talk about them more in depth, but here's a teaser. Don't do them ever.
Yeah. I mean, so on that front, Albert has, they have an investments account. So you could have a savings account, you can have an investment account. I used that one for a while actually.
Okay.
They generally are tracking index funds, but of course they're taking a management fee off of that.
Right.
Um, Yeah, so they have a few different pieces associated, but Albert also has some really good education pieces. They started a new kind of daily news kind of thing where
Oh,
they
yeah.
give like personal finance topics and some things happening in the news. And so it's actually pretty cool how much they've advanced over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So I think our general point is even though there are these kind of like trusted institutions, a lot of these newer companies are doing great work. They're easy to use.
Yeah,
Let me just say this, easy to use. I hate Fidelity. Their interface is garbage.
pretty bad.
So hard to figure out like automatic like withdrawals or deposits. Whereas Albert, it's like 3 button clicks and it just makes life easier. So a lot of these newer companies, because they're new, because they're nimble, they just make life simple and they work, right? They're trusted and it's not something to be too afraid of, I would say, if
Yeah,
you're in
so that
the
I think
space.
that's a great point is making it clear that they also, even though they're new,
Mhm.
young, fledgling companies, they do have really good security measures and good
Okay.
encryption because in order to connect to your bank account, this application has direct access to your bank account. So you've got to be kind of worried like, hey, is it good that they can be pulling from, that they can see my account numbers, that type of thing? And Albert, I think, uses Plaid,
Yeah.
which is that encrypted, secure connection where it's actually done through a third party. So you log in, and then they have a connection through this, so they don't actually ever see your account numbers or anything like that, but they're able to draw funds on it regularly. And that's obviously encryption, security, privacy, safety, all that stuff is really important right now. So it's definitely important to do your research on these accounts, these applications. Make sure that you're not, you know, picking the one from the Nigerian prince that
Yes.
actually takes
Yeah.
all your money out of your account.
Yeah.
But being careful, and on that front, we think that Albert is one that's very good in that.
Yeah, we both like Albert. Yeah, just look at download numbers. If there's a finance app that's got like 132 downloads, don't do it. All right, that one, let other people test that one out. But if it's in the hundreds of thousands, I think you're probably safe.
Mhm.
And I think these can make life a lot easier for savings. And I think depending on your temperament, could be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we can turn off the pain associated with paying for something or funding a savings account by making it automatic and happen behind the scenes, then I think that that's a really good way to do it because I check my bank account every day, but I don't check my Albert savings account every day. I
Right.
maybe check it once a week.
Right.
And then I'm always pleasantly surprised because I'm like, oh, hey, there's some funding in there.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like a nice little surprise, like, "Oh, I got an extra couple $100 in there," or
That's
whatever it
right.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
No, it's fun. Uh, who knew? So, I think we're wrapping up, Jeff. Is there anything about kind of goal savings or general savings I forgot to bring up or we haven't talked about or you think we need to talk about?
No, I think we covered it. Just again, just reiterating the fact that this is we're doing some research on this front, right?
Mhm.
We're preparing a goal that we want to save for. We're not just saving for some random thing. We're saying, hey, I'm going to do this. It's going to cost this amount, and I want to save this much over this time frame. So we're really going through the steps of building out this process and this flow. And then once we do that, making it automatic so that we can kind of set it and forget it.
Awesome. Well, with that, Jeff, I want to thank you for all of your expert advice and wisdom and everything. So thank you.
Thank you, John, for being the host.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. And for everybody watching, if you enjoyed this video, if you got something out of this video, please remember to like and subscribe. I said it at the beginning of this video as well. So this is the first time I nailed that. Nailed it, finally. All right, Jeff, thank you. Everyone who watched, thank you.